Welcome to the podcast. Today, we're diving into an intriguing comparison between a prophetic profile outlined by Dolores Cannon's hypnotherapy regressions and the actual biography of a prominent political figure.
Oh, that sounds fascinating. Can you clarify which prophetic profile we're talking about?
Sure, it's about the so called third Antichrist as described in Cannon's work on Nostradamus's prophecies. According to those accounts, this figure has a very specific set of biographical traits. A birth date of February 4th, 1962, in Jerusalem, among a host of other details.
Interesting. And let me guess, this profile doesn't match up with the biography of Jared Kushner, correct?
Exactly. When you look closely, the discrepancies are pretty significant. For instance, Cannon's profile sets the birth of this figure to a very specific date and place, while Jared Kushner was born on January 10th, 1981, in Livingston, New Jersey.
Wow, that's a pretty clear difference in both date and location. It's like comparing apples and oranges, right?
Right, exactly. And then there's the matter of religion and heritage. Cannon's profile expressly mentions that the figure is not of Jewish descent. Meanwhile, Kushner was raised in a modern Orthodox Jewish family, attending Hebrew school, studying in yeshivas, and his whole family background includes survivors of the Holocaust.
So, in terms of ethnicity and religious upbringing, the two are basically on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Correct. And it doesn't stop with just the religious background. The entire story of their upbringing is drastically different. Cannon's description notes that his subject's parents were tragically killed in an Israeli war when he was very young, about 6 or 7 years old, and he was secretly raised by his uncle who had sinister plans to groom him for power.
That's quite a dramatic backstory. In stark contrast, Jared Kushner was raised by his loving parents, Charles and Cyril Kushner, who are both still very much alive. It's a normal, albeit privileged, upbringing in New Jersey.
Absolutely. And then there's the educational path. Cannon's profile describes a kind of wanderer attending college in Egypt, studying economics, philosophy, and computers, and even living in estates along the Nile, Syria, and Oman.
Yeah, that almost sounds like an adventure novel. Meanwhile, Kushner went to Harvard for his undergrad and later earned both a JD and an MBA from New York University. So his path was much more conventional, isn't it?
Right. It's a very traditional, academically rigorous route compared to the exotic, almost mythic tale presented in Cannon's narrative.
What's interesting is that Cannon's work even brings up Middle Eastern connections from a very early age, being groomed by powerful, secretive groups known in the narration as puppet masters.
Exactly. And this narrative suggests that the figure was being molded from a young age by hidden forces in the Middle East. Now, while Kushner does have significant ties to the Middle East, his connections were all established through his role in American politics and business. Particularly during his time as a senior advisor and his involvement in ventures like the Abraham Accords.
I get that. So if I understand correctly, the Middle Eastern connections are also not a match. They're more a product of later political maneuvering rather than a childhood background.
Exactly, that's the crux of it. Cannon's account implies an early and deliberate grooming by powerful Arab figures, which is completely absent from Kushner's biography. His ties to the region came about through adult engagements in politics and finance, nothing cinematic or orchestrated from infancy, if you will.
That makes a lot of sense. But I have to ask, some might argue that even these later ties to the Middle East could symbolically line up with prophetic archetypes. What do you think about that?
It's a fair point, and some partisan theories do stretch symbolic comparisons. But if you dig into the specifics, the foundational details just don't hold up. Prophecies of that nature are very particular about dates, upbringing, and even the underlying religious identity. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round
Absolutely.
hole, you know?
Yeah, I see that. It sounds like while superficial similarities might tempt someone to draw connections between well-known figures and these ancient prophecies, the details here make it clear that Kushner's profile doesn't align with the prophesied traits.
Precisely. The mismatch in birth dates, the entire religious and cultural heritage, and even the narrative around his upbringing and education just aren't congruent with what Cannon's regressions indicate about the third Antichrist.
It really highlights the importance of paying attention to the details, doesn't it? Sometimes the narrative can be swayed by broad claims without considering the nitty-gritty of the evidence.
Yep, exactly. And, while it's fascinating to see how modern figures get entangled in these prophetic discussions, the evidence here clearly contradicts the idea of Kushner being the subject of these regression-based predictions.
Very clear indeed. Do you think there's any merit in the broader practice of linking contemporary figures with ancient prophecies? I mean, there's a certain allure in that.
Oh, definitely. There's a captivating element to it, like watching a mystery unfold. But when you dig into it, the romanticized narratives just don't stand up to factual scrutiny. It's like a really exciting story, but then you pull back the curtain and see that the details just don't
Yeah,
match.
I can see that. It's a reminder of how much we need to separate folklore and myth from verified history.
Absolutely. It's all well and good to explore symbolic narratives, yet if we're aiming for accuracy, the actual historical and factual records are what must guide our interpretations.
And in this case, Jared Kushner's verified background just can't be reconciled with the very specific, almost cinematic details laid out in Dolores Cannon's regression sessions.
Exactly, right on point. It creates a clear distinction. While theories and symbolism can be part of cultural discourse, when you align them with historical facts, the discrepancies are glaring.
Absolutely. You know, this whole discussion also makes me think about how different people can interpret the same narrative in entirely different ways, sort of like a Rorschach test for modern politics and prophecy.
That's a great analogy. It's like each person sees what they want to see in the ink blots, even though objectively the details don't support that vision.
Yeah, exactly. And it certainly serves as a reminder to always check the facts and compare them thoroughly, especially when large claims are at stake.
No doubt about it. The crux of this discussion is that while the idea of correlating modern figures with prophetic archetypes is intriguing, the evidence just doesn't support linking Kushner to the role of the third Antichrist.
Right, absolutely. So, to sum it up, while these mystical regressions build an elaborate narrative, the concrete details, in terms of date, upbringing, religion, and education, all point in an entirely different direction from Kushner's background.
Exactly. It's a compelling narrative for sure, but the mismatch in specifics emphasizes the need for clear evidence when making such significant associations.
No doubt there. Thanks for breaking down these points with such clarity. This conversation really highlights how detailed analysis can debunk broader, more sensational claims.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure unpacking this complex topic. There's always something mesmerizing about the intersection of prophecy, mythology, and reality, even if the facts don't align as neatly as some might hope.
Yep, definitely. Until next time, we'll keep questioning and digging into the details.
Looking forward to our next conversation. Take care, everyone.